Hello, my name is Connor O'Brien. I am a 25-year-old on the autism spectrum. I am from Coventry, Rhode Island, and I work at Rhode Island College. Autism impacts me in the sense that it is a neurodevelopmental disability. The social part doesn't grow, but the intellectual part does. So it makes it kind of difficult to socially interact, to be around other people, to read social cues. It's a whole host of other things, but I view it as it impacts me as far as the way my social skills developed.
My name is Jess Ortiz. I am a late diagnosed autistic adult. I hadn't been able to find a job after graduating college. I've pretty much come to realize that I can't work a typical job. They're very understanding and interested until it becomes an inconvenience. And then it's like, well, you just need to try harder. And it's like, I've been trying harder. This is trying harder.
My name is CJ, and I am autistic. My hobbies are surfing the web, playing video games, acting. Well, my autism, it makes me feel things a lot more than it would the average person. I interpret things more personally than usual. Whenever I'm excited, I'm way excited. Whenever I'm upset, I'm way upset. Recently, physical stimming, and I'm demonstrating as I describe it. You know, the standard, typical, average, run-of-the-mill autism. But then again, what even is that?
So if ever I have a really rough day, I'll just crawl into bed for a bit. But if I'm in a place where I can't do that, or if I don't have anything to fidget with, at least, it's really, really dysregulating. I can't think clearly. And it can get scary, honestly. But then also you have to be concerned of other people's impressions. You don't want to, embarrass yourself or make them feel uncomfortable. And it's you're stuck.
We all have the five senses, right? And autistic people do that, dial it up times 10. That's exactly what it feels like to have autism, is to feel the world intensely.
I can hear the rocks caught in the wheels of a tire as it's rolling, floorboards, and the technology that you're using. I hear a crying baby in Walmart. I sprint in the other direction.
Put them all together and the brain is overloaded. So having all that kind of information coming in at once, but multiplied, it's really difficult.
Like I said, I interpret things in ways people can't predict. Some say that I take things too literally. I would say that people aren't clear enough. People tend to, any little thing, if something is getting on my nerves, it is going to stay on my nerves no matter how hard I try. And believe me, I try.
Jeannie Andrioli. I am the mom of a 20-year-old, now young man with autism. He may have difficulty communicating his needs using the right words because he is articulate. He comes across as, pretty smart because he looks like we do, but he has one of the things that's very serious is his intense stimming and the way that he responds. A lot of times when he responds to a question, it comes across as rude. He does a lot of after he talks, and it can come across as rude and disrespectful, and it's not that way. He's very articulate now, has a very large vocabulary, and wants to talk to people about what he knows, especially trivia. So sometimes it's not okay to be in someone's face and want to talk about that. So he gets really upset when he's prompted to not do that because he just wants that human connection. He just wants to talk about what he likes to talk about.
My name is John Quinn. I'm the parent of a 26-year-old young man with autism. His name is Patrick. Patrick has a number of sensory challenges. Probably one of the most obvious is a real aversion to loud noises, and he finds it very, very difficult to cope to the point where he needs to escape from a very loud noise, whether that's, again, by blocking his ears or by getting out. Patrick is a stimmer, which means he self-stimulates. He uses different activities that calm his nerves through physicality. So you will see him humming, he flaps, he will very, very strenuously grind his hands together, which is a very common isometric stress relief for him. When he is escaping, he will often skip or walk on his toes as a way of extending his muscles so that it helps him calm as his muscles relax. So he is very, very prone to these types of activities when in stressful situations. His receptive communication, that is the communication of people talking to him or presenting information to him, is very, very weak. He learns by doing, he learns by reading and drawing and seeing, but he doesn't learn by listening. And it's a very, very difficult concept for him to understand that people think he's absorbing when in fact he's just looking at them while they're talking to him.
Hi, my name is Deb Langevin, and my son Josh is 26 years old, and he has level 3 autism. He currently lives at home, and he requires 24-hour supervision to keep him safe in the house and in the community. Josh's sensory challenges are in the form of toe walking and arm flapping. He also has issues with maybe a tag on his shirt or maybe a rock in his shoe that could just set him off for the whole day. Unfortunately, we might not know what that is, and he would just end up having a rough time until we try to figure that out. A lot of times he will answer yes to all questions or no to all questions. Sometimes if he doesn't answer at all, it appears that he's not listening. When Josh had an ear infection, he kept coming up to us and saying, "Does your ear hurt?" However, that wasn't, for us, it meant that his ear actually hurt. If someone did not know this or did not know him, they would not understand that he had a problem.
To those watching, supporting autistic people is not easy because it's what's known as the autism spectrum. Because there's a side of the spectrum that people communicate more easily verbally, and there are those who are nonverbal.
People tend to have two perceptions of autistic people based on the media. It's either they're screaming, nonverbal, very out of control, or they're stoic geniuses with no social skills.
There's a whole different bunch of us. There's a lot of intersectionality. There's a lot of, diversity in the community. So if you encounter one person with autism, do not assume that just because they're on the autism spectrum that it's the general cookie cutter type. No. You need to know the details first. You need to know a lot more about the person than just the fact that they have autism. They could be like me, or they could be like somebody else who may not communicate as easily. So approach every situation knowing what the person's needs are, how you're going to approach it, and how to resolve the conflict peacefully, like de-escalate.
It would be a great weight off the autistic community's shoulders to know that whenever they're in trouble, whenever they're in danger, be it fire or emotional endangerment, mental anguish, that they have first responders that they can call and count upon. Someone who is trained to de-escalate a situation, who is trained to deal with emotions, trained to deal with psychiatric behavior.
De-escalation is extremely important.
A de-escalating tone is going to be worth $1 million in situations like that.
We need time to kind of like digest information, and that is harder to do if we're overwhelmed. If there's like sensory things, like let's say like the flashing lights on a police car or like sirens going off and all that stuff, that can be extremely overwhelming. And then you like hear all that and all of that input is coming in. And then on top of that, somebody's trying to like talk to you. Like that's just, it's not going to work.
If I seem very anxious or panicky or I don't communicate right away, it is not because I do not want to comply. You'll find that people on the spectrum want to comply with commands. They just do not know how. And there are others that are not like me that can be even more difficult. So I'd like them to know that I'm autistic, I have anxiety, and I'm on the edge. I feel on edge. So just, tone it down a bit. Just be a little more friendly.
During an emergency, families know their child best, and if at all possible, first responders should maybe try to get some information from the family to deal with the autistic individual. As a mom, I would like first responders to take their time, and I know it's an emergency situation, but maybe take their time and wait for a response. The scene, I'm sure, will be chaotic, but maybe taking him aside and being able to talk to him one-on-one and looking him right in the eye and hopefully knowing that he does have a problem and then adjusting the questions accordingly.
One-on-one interactions are good as opposed to like being crowded.
Wait for a response. Hi, I'm Officer Jones. What's your name? It may take Patrick 10 or 15 seconds to understand. Okay, this is a police officer. He's asked me a simple question. I know the answer. I feel comfortable about answering it. Patrick Quinn. If you don't wait and you escalate the situation, he's going to start stimming because he doesn't understand that you're already on to the next sentence and he hasn't answered the first one yet. What are the things that you can do? Simply saying stop with a visible signal is a whole lot better than shouting, stop, get on the ground right now. Just say stop.
I think something that would be important is if first responders always have like something to help with communicating. Like if it's, I don't know, a notebook or like something to type on, in case somebody can't speak.
Josh is nonverbal for the most part, and he will answer yes or no questions, sometimes inaccurately. If you don't know him, you might think he's actually answering the question right when that's really not what he meant. He also enjoys using visuals as a means to get through his day and crossing off things from a calendar. If they happen to have visuals available that he could point to something, that would be very helpful because he might not be able to find the words in a stressful situation, but a picture would actually trigger the response for him.
Verbal commands aren't always going to work, or they may just walk away. That's why using stuff like cards or, sensory toys or something of that nature can kind of calm them down and can kind of bring them back to where you are in the moment.
It's sort of like a pressure valve. It like lets that steam out.
Although those on the more verbal end could, just calmly explain, what's happening, why it's happening, why'd I stop you, why is, as long as we know what's happening and we know what's going on, we're usually okay. So as much information as possible without overloading us. That's the key, which I know can be difficult, but just as much information as possible with, enough to not completely overwhelm us. Just read the room, read the situation. Try to take some extra care that these people are having a hard enough life already that they don't need more anxiety and stress on them. So the more you can just calm them and reassure them and just tell them what's going on, the better.
We were at my brother's house for Thanksgiving several years ago. It was loud, and he was also not able to converse with everyone that was in the room. His cousins were there, talking on a different plane than he was used to dealing with. He couldn't escape the party atmosphere by going to another room because it permeated the house. So he asked, could he go for a walk, which made perfect sense to us. He goes for a walk often, but he was stimming a bit. He was grinding his hands, and he was perhaps flapping and walking on his toes. One of the neighbors was concerned because Patrick is 6'2", and he's a big, hulking guy. Not trying to process the situation any further, the neighbor called 911. The officer that responded could not have been more appropriate. He was absolutely perfect. He very calmly introduced himself first. He asked Patrick his name. He asked Patrick if he lived in the neighborhood. Patrick said, no, I'm visiting my uncle. Patrick, do you have a cell phone? Yes. Can we call one of your parents on your cell phone? Sure. And he said, I don't mean to overstep my bounds, but I'm guessing Patrick has autism. And I said, yes, you've hit the nail on the head. And he said, and this was the charmer, we had a briefing on autistic behaviors about 3 weeks ago, and so I felt like I knew what to do in this situation. It couldn't have ended more perfectly, but I worry that that isn't always going to happen. That untrained law enforcement officers aren't going to understand what it is that they're dealing with, and that they're going to end up in a situation that could be tragic.
My fear is that Giovanni's 20 years old. I'm sorry. And Giovanni is now he's a black man. He's a black man in the world of people making assumptions about what can be happening, stimming excessively, very, very hard, and he grimaces. So when he's doing that, he's also making noises. And Giovanni also talks to himself a lot. He'll replay an entire movie just standing there. What was said and what was said back, he'll say every word. So if by some chance someone felt unsafe being around Giovanni because of his very intense movements and facial expressions, someone may call the police thinking either he could be intoxicated on drugs or having a seizure even, because it looks his head goes back and forth. So may feel the need to call ambulance, police, whatever they think is needed. The problem is that Giovanni would resist. So even for me, in emergency situations, my anxiety is up. I'm at probably a very heightened state of anxiety, fear maybe. I think that anyone who is with a child, a teenager, a young man, an adult with autism needs to be heard. So sometimes, if whomever the responder is just wants to know the information from usually the person or even the person who called, I think that if a family member or a caregiver is there, that needs to be heard as well. If police felt the need to restrain him because he appears to be unsafe, he appears to be unsafe within himself and around others, that they may restrain him. But my fear is if he's standing there and thinks, let me get my phone so I can call my mom, it may be assumed that he's not going for a phone, because that's what people think. It's not unusual to think that. That is my, I don't even find a word profound enough to describe how huge the fear is for me that he could lose his life being a happy, autistic young man. I don't even know what else to say about that. So there was a couple of things that Giovanni wanted me to tell you. Giovanni wanted me to tell you that he likes stimming. It makes him happy. He loves it. He doesn't want somebody to say stop. He doesn't want someone to say, calm down, relax. He said, Mom, people with autism, we have a heart and a brain.
Well, I would like to say just a couple of things. I'd like to thank anybody who's watching this, law enforcement, firefighter, EMTs, or otherwise. Genuinely, on behalf of the autistic community, thank you for the work you do. You're very underappreciated, and we don't show it enough. And know that we're not enemies here. We're just trying to bridge the gap. This is about helping you understand. And the more you understand, the better. Just as if you told us more about you, we'd understand. So it's all a matter of bridging the gap, bridging differences, and just coming together for a common purpose. So just do what I said.
A little compassion goes a long way at the end of the day.